Welcome to Fantasy and Enchantment, where I describe fantasy books to my husband and see if he's enchanted. My name is Sarah.
And I'm Justin.
This week we are starting Folk of the Air series, so we're going to start with The Cruel Prince. Also, content warnings. We will swear a lot, adult language, content, all that stuff.
Oh.
Cat just jumped on the table with us.
Meow. That wasn't the cat, it was me.
In case you couldn't tell.
I do a pretty solid cat.
I feel like I'm forgetting something.
I don't know, some shit. You did tell me that you are incredibly concerned about this episode.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite series that I've read so far this year. And there have been a lot of them, so that's saying something. It's another YA series, so it's not porn.
No porn.
There are a couple instances, but they're very vague and like just enough detail that you know what's happening without being explicit, you know?
I'm not getting all the way into the penetration.
No. And this one you might actually like a little bit more because it's the other books we've talked about up to this point have been like a combination of romance and fantasy. This is get away from the microphone.
Meow.
This is a fantasy book that has like a little bit of romance on the side.
Okay.
So it's a lot more about the politics of the place that they live. So in that way, it's kind of like Game of Thrones, really.
Okay. But you're worried that I'm going to ruin it for you.
Yes, because that's been what you've done over the last few months.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Of course not.
This is what happens when you try to tell me your stories.
Okay.
It'd be like if I sat you down and tried to explain to you what happened on wrestling every week. You'd be like, that's fucking stupid. So, we're just reversing things here.
Okay. So, we'll do the description, we'll go over the cover, and the map. There's another map.
Oh, lovely maps.
Although, this one is set on planet Earth.
Oh, it's a real planet.
It's a real planet.
I know what that
get
map
into it
looks
later.
like.
I promise you don't.
I've seen the planet.
We'll get into
I
it.
mean, I haven't seen the planet. I've seen the way NASA wants you to see it. But,
Shut up.
you know, the flat earthers, they've got a whole different thing.
Stop.
So,
Not again.
we're not talking flat earth today?
No.
Is the earth flat in this book?
No.
Okay.
Because it's not fucking flat.
It's a fair question. I'm going to just assume going forward, anyone that's set in a different world is on a flat earth.
So stupid. And I hate you for it.
All right, let's read the back.
Okay. Jude was 7 when her parents were murdered, and she and her 2 sisters were stolen away to live in the treacherous High Court of Fairy. 10 years later, Jude wants nothing more than to belong there. But many of the Fae despise humans, especially Prince Carden, the youngest and wickedest son of the High King. To win a place at the court, Jude must defy him and face the consequences. So short, sweet, to the point.
Okay.
So,
Cover.
I think this whole fairy place is right off of the West Coast. The East Coast. They mentioned Maine at one point. But like the fairy land that they're in is like off the coast of the ocean, and there are all these islands and stuff.
All right. Is it Oak Island?
It's not Oak Island.
I love that show. I've been watching Oak Island
They
for what?
never find anything.
11 years at this point?
Way too long.
I've seen every episode.
So basically, the places that are important in this one are Mannix House, Hollow Hall, and the Palace. Those are the 3 places we're going to go to.
I will say, I'm not impressed by this illustration. It looks like a high school kid drew the map.
It does not.
It does. It's very rudimentary.
You're rudimentary.
Your butt's rudimentary. Show me the cover. Cover is just some branches with a crown and a beetle.
Yep.
I like the beetle. Does the beetle come into play at any point, or is it just window dressing?
I don't remember the beetle.
Okay.
But I mean, he's a prince. There's a crown. You get it.
Right. I assume the prince is not the main character.
He's one of the main characters.
We can't have a man be the main character in a book.
So the 2 main characters are Jude and Carden. Carden is the prince.
Okay.
Also, there was a time way back when we first started recording these, and I said, wait till we get to the one with the guy with the tail.
Oh. Is
This is the guy with the
guy
tail.
with the tail? All right, we got a monkey kid.
He's not a monkey. All right, I'm not even going to go there. So, the important thing before we get into it is that, like, The ACOTAR books also had like this fairy world, but the fae there were basically just superhuman, really
Right.
attractive superhuman people.
18 packs of abs. And,
Yes.
yeah.
Everybody was
dark,
hundreds of years
tall,
old.
dark, and handsome, if you're into that kind of thing.
Carden is like 17 when this book starts out. He's about
Okay.
the same age as Jude. And the fae here are very clearly not human. That's why Carden has a tail.
Right. That'll make a difference.
That'll make a difference. Yeah, there are like sea fae and people who have like
Mer people.
tree bark for skin, and like it's a very natural, naturistic kind of world.
Okay.
They are very clearly not human.
Right.
Okay, are you ready?
Let's do it.
So the book opens on a prologue. There's a man who comes to the house and knocks on the door. Jude and her twin sister Taryn are inside. So is Vivian, who's her older sister, their older sister. And this is when Jude mentions that Vivian kind of has pointed ears. Jude answers the door and yells for her mom. And then her mom says to go to her room. And then the man outside starts talking. Do you know what it is to return from battle, to find your wife dead, your only heir with her, to find your life reduced to ash? Jude notices that this man has greenish kind of skin. Her mom says she was never going to be happy with him. Jude runs into the living room, tells her sisters they need to go upstairs. She sees her dad sneaking in with an axe, and then he swings it at the man and misses. And the man stabs him clean through with a sword.
Swing and a miss.
So he's dead. The man tells Vivian to come to him. Their mom starts to run, and then he stabs her in the back. So now, 2 people dead.
That's also a classy move, stabbing somebody in the back.
Yeah. Jude runs up to the man and starts just hitting him with her little hands. He tells Vivian they're all coming with him to Elfheim. They are the progeny of my wife and thus my responsibility. I may be cruel, a monster, and a murderer. Check, check, check.
Check, check, motherfucking check.
But I do not shirk my responsibilities, nor should you shirk yours as the eldest. So he's like, sorry I killed your parents. You're going to come live with me though. It's going to be fine.
Whoops-a-daisy.
Yeah. They all pack and they get on a horse and they cry the whole way to Elfheim because their parents just...
Where they lived before.
This is what I think the first time they mentioned, like, they were in the mortal world because they're on Earth
Yeah.
in like the Maine-ish area. I don't remember if it's Maine or Washington. Fuck. I'll figure it out later.
2 forgettable states.
Okay.
Washington, D.C. or Washington State.
State.
That's a long way.
Yeah.
From Maine.
That's why I'm like, is it East Coast or West Coast? I don't remember. But
Doesn't-
anyway.
Doesn't matter.
The book starts officially. Jude is having her hair braided by an imp. And her name is Tatterfell. She tells Jude how lucky she is to be there as a mortal. Like, how lucky she is that Maddox took her in and took care of her, even after he killed her parents.
Yeah.
Jude wants to become a member of the High Court as a knight. She's been in Fairy for 10 years now. So it's been 10 years since that murder happened. She lives with Maddox. That's the guy, the green guy.
Yeah.
Green guy. Who
Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, he's actually a red cap. Do you know what that is?
No. I know Red Cap is a brand of pants.
So they're a species of fairy who thrive on murder and violence.
Oh, how would I have not known what that was? You know, my fairy species.
Well, I wasn't
know,
sure what.
Do I know what that is?
I wasn't sure.
Fuck out of here.
Checking. God, calm down.
So he's the Incredible Hulk. He's green and he gets real mad and he smashes.
He stabs, actually.
Hit it with a stick.
And he's got a hat. This is why they're called the red caps. He's got a hat, and every time he wins a battle, he dips that hat in blood.
So it's a MAGA hat.
Sure. Sure.
He's a real Republican, this guy.
Her twin sister Taryn comes in the room and says that she wants to have fun tonight. They pass their sister Vivian, who is Maddox's like biological child.
With the pointy ears.
Yeah.
She's an elf.
She hates Maddox. She does her best to piss him off on a regular basis.
She's a rebellious teenager.
Yeah. Maddox is waiting with his wife Oriana. She tells them not to eat, drink, or dance at the party.
So they're Mormons.
Well, no.
Or Jehovah's Witnesses.
No.
Do they knock on people's door? Do they wear special underwear?
They do none of
Do
those.
they celebrate holidays?
Yes.
Okay, so they're not Jehovah's Witnesses.
No.
They're Mormons.
So let's see, eat, drink, or dance. So the food in fairy can, like, fuck with their heads. There's a special kind of fruit. It's called ever apple. If they eat that in particular, they're going to be basically drugged. And then dancing for humans is really dangerous because fairy music will compel them to keep dancing until they drop dead.
Okay.
You may think that salt is sufficient protection because if they put salt on the food before they eat it, that kind of nullifies the magic. But you children are forgetful. Better to go without. As for dancing, once begun, you mortals will dance yourselves to death if we don't prevent it. Apparently she gives a speech every time they go anywhere.
Cool. Well, I mean, it's something you probably needed to be reminded of.
I mean, they've been there for 10 years. I think Jude knows by now.
Don't get to dancing.
Don't do it. Her and Maddox, Oriana and Maddox, have a son named Oak.
He's a tree.
He does have little horns. And, like, so instead of people legs, he's got, like, goat legs.
Cool.
So, what does...
Does he shit normal or does he shit those little pellets?
I don't know. I don't know, Justin.
I got questions about the poop.
Okay. They all get on horses and ride off to the party. They greet the High King. His name is Eldred.
Howdy, High King.
His grandmother was Queen Mab.
I imagine nobody in these fantasy worlds says howdy or talks with like a southern accent at all.
No, that's not a thing here.
It'd be really funny if you just had like a straight up hillbilly. Where y'all going? Y'all want to go watch the NASCAR, drink some Mountain Dews, and maybe some beers?
Okay. Queen Mab created the High Court. He has, in total, 6 kids, which is a lot for a fairy.
Oh, okay. It's a lot for a human.
I mean, yeah, it is.
That's a litter
Fair
of
enough.
puppies.
Well,
Nobody
we consider
needs
he's been alive for hundreds of years.
Okay, well, I mean, that makes it a little better, but
Yeah.
you don't need 6 kids.
No. You barely even need one, really.
Fact.
So let's see. Baelkin, Dane, and Elwyn are all standing next to him. So Baelkin and Dane, his sons. Elwyn is his daughter. Baelkin runs a court for people who like to party. He calls it the Court of Grackles. Dane runs the Court of Falcons, who are knights and warriors. Maddox is part of his court, because he's a redcap. Elwyn runs a court of larks, and they're people who like art and music and dancing and stuff.
So he's got a couple party kids and like one serious one.
Yeah. Jude and Taryn share an apple, a regular apple, not an ever apple. Jude sees a pixie with white hair steal from an ogre. That's going to be important later.
Okay.
Taryn wants to dance, so she suggests they take turns pulling each other out from the dance, because if they're left to their own devices, they will dance until they're dead.
Christ.
That's a real... If you look up, like, the mythology of fairies, that's a real thing.
Okay.
A lot of this book is based on the actual, like, Celtic lore of fairies.
Okay, so it's got the Irish. Do they just eat potatoes?
I hate you.
Potato, potato, potato.
Okay. They see Elwyn with Kalia, who is another one of the High King's daughters, and then Prince Cardan walks towards them. His friends, Valerian, Nicasia, and Locke are with him.
Man, I am not going to remember a single one of these names.
I'm going to repeat them on a regular basis.
Damn it.
Also, no spoilers, half of these people are going to be dead by the end of the book.
Good riddance. Too many names.
Taryn says she heard that Cardan has a tail, but he hides it. He, like, stuffs it in his pants.
He whips it around and puts it in the front so it looks like he's got a big old dick.
I should have seen that coming.
Is his tail hairy? Is it like a rat tail where
It's
it's
kind
like
of-
skin? Or is it like a monkey tail where it's hairy?
So, and when Jude eventually sees it, it's like skin, and then there's a tuft of hair at the end of it.
So it's pubes.
No. I'm trying to think of what kind of animal has a tail like that. Like a not a horse.
I mean, I guess like if you groomed a dog that way, you could groom a poodle to where it
Yeah.
had like a skinny tail and then just a big old puff at the end.
Yeah.
That's like that.
Yeah,
He's
like
a,
that.
He's a poodle.
Sure, he's a poodle. They bow as Cardan walks past because he's a prince and they have to.
He's real fancy.
His friend Valerian, who is an asshole, grabs Jude by the hair. He says they stand out because of how plain they are. Valerian really doesn't like mortals.
Right. They're real boring.
And then they walk off. Jude then watches Cardan pull a wing off a boy when he doesn't bow to Cardan, because some of these creatures have wings.
Right. Not that one anymore.
Yeah, he's missing one now. It might grow back. I don't know.
Just flying in circles because he just got one wing.
Maybe.
Was he a Boeing plane? That's when he fell off.
Yeah. And then Locke, his friend Locke, helps the boy up. Taryn says not to give them a reason to bother them because Taryn's whole philosophy is like if we hide ourselves enough, they won't come after us.
Yeah, just fall in line.
Basically. Jude is in her room later. She says she's tired of being powerless. Like she says it out loud. She's talking to herself. And then an owl who's waiting by the window flies off.
Is that important later?
Yes.
Okay.
The next day, Jude and Taryn go to lessons because they do have like a school system there.
Gotta teach him something.
Yeah. There will be a tournament in a few days where Jude might get picked as a knight because they don't do genders with like the military stuff in it. So that's something, at least. Carden and his friends are already there. They learn about the undersea, which is where Nicasia is from. So Nicasia is kind of a mermaid.
Okay. Big titty mermaid.
Yeah. I mean...
Or is she a backwards mermaid? Fish on top, people on the bottom?
No. She's got like blue skin and like dark blue hair, maybe green, like a teal color actually, I think.
Okay.
She's grown up on land, but like her mother is the queen of the undersea.
Fish people.
Yeah.
Like the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah.
It's one of the best movies ever made.
Okay. Not quite like that, but sure.
Okay.
They start having lunch. Carden kicks dirt on their food. Nicasia yanks a pin out of Jude's hair, and then Locke jumps on and says to leave them alone. Carden tells Jude that she doesn't belong in the tournament. So there is a lot of bullying in this book in particular.
Yeah, sounds like it. It's got a real, like what's the bastard kid from Harry Potter? What's his name?
The bastard kid?
The kid who's a real asshole in Harry
Draco
Potter.
Malfoy?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got real vibes of that, like in the early book, or in the early movies, where he's the real cunt.
Yeah, I mean, but growing up, you realize that Draco Malfoy was not actually a very good bully. Carden is actually maybe too good. We'll get there. Taryn tells Jude not to talk back to them, and then she asks if she's going to quit the tournament. But Jude says if she's a knight, she'll be beyond their reach. So, like, she wants to have some power of her own, so maybe they'll leave her the fuck alone. Taryn says she wants to marry into the high court, so she wants to marry a fae.
Hey, that's one way to do it. Fuck your way to the top.
Yeah.
We got a presidential candidate who did that. Boom! Roasted! Continue.
No, I'm not going to continue. We need to talk about this.
That's a good one.
No, it's not.
That's funny.
I saw a thing the other day that said if women were sleeping their way to the top, there would be a lot more women
That's
on
true.
the top.
Most of them are sleeping their way to the middle.
Like me.
You didn't even... You think this is the middle? You could have gotten a whole lot higher than this.
And yet here I am.
Here you are. It's because I'm so funny. And I'm adorable.
Okay. Anyway. And this is when Jude says that she has not yet asked Maddox for permission to enter the tournament. They get to their house. They see that Vivian's room is a mess. And there are pictures of her with another girl who's very clearly human. And they have dinner later. Maddox says the king is going to abdicate. So Eldred has decided he's too old and tired to be king anymore. But, like, the Fae can die, they can get hurt. But if, barring that, they're gonna live for a really fucking long time.
Right.
He's probably gonna choose Prince Dane to succeed him. Maddox says the king is tired. And then this is when he says that he's a red cap. He wants to go to battle again. That's all he wants to do.
Fight, fight, fight. Who are they fighting against?
So Eldred is king of the high court. They have lower courts, which are, instead of like the houses in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
They call them lower courts instead of houses. So just kind of think of it like that. Sometimes they fight each other.
Okay. They can't all just get on the same page and be like, we're all mythical creatures. Let's just all coexist.
Does anybody ever really coexist for very long?
No. Society's a mess.
Yep. The new king's coronation will be at the autumn solstice. Worry not, I have a plan to ensure our futures. Only concern yourselves with making ready for a great deal of dancing. So he was like...
We're going to the club.
I mean, that's not quite where that was going, but Maddox is saying that he has a plan to make sure that they're set for the rest of their lives. Taryn tells Maddox that Jude wants to ask him something. And this is when Jude says she wants to enter the tournament. But he says she's not a killer. He tells her she's not ready to be a knight, but she can ask again after the coronation. The next day, Jude asks Taryn to skip their lessons. And Taryn says Maddox might change his mind about the tournament, like she might still be able to present herself as a knight. But Jude says no because he thinks she's weak. And that's a common thing, that like, because she's human, the Fae think that she's weak
Right.
and insignificant, and
She doesn't have fancy powers or weird skin or
None of that,
big
yeah.
old dick tail. Yeah.
okay. Shouldn't have told you about the tail. I thought I was supposed to be good and follow the rules, but I am done with being weak. I'm done with being good. I think I'm going to be something else. So she's decided, like, she's done trying to fit in. She's going to make a path for herself somehow. They don't skip the lessons. Carden and his friends are there. They start eating their lunch and then spit it out because Jude has salted all of it. And the Fae can't really eat salt. It's almost poisonous for them.
Oh, whoopsies.
And then Taryn gets mad at Jude and says she's making everything worse because they're going to retaliate now. Which they might.
Yeah.
And this is when little bits of things that have happened along the way. When she was 9, one of Maddox's guards bit off the tip of Jude's left ring finger. She never told anyone that it happened. When she was 11, what they call a gentry, like a high fae like Carden, dragged her out from under a table and compelled her to drink and dance until she threw up. Maddox doesn't know about that. When she was 14, Oak, their little son, who's a few years old at this point, glamored her. So fairies have the power to like magically compel humans. And they call that a glamour.
Okay.
Glamored her so she would chase him and play with him, and then made her hit herself like multiple times. So, very clearly illustrating the ways that the Fae have hurt her.
Also, maybe humans shouldn't live with the fairies.
Well,
It doesn't seem to work out so great for the humans.
but remember, Maddox is doing the right thing
Right.
because he killed her parents.
Sure. Maybe you shouldn't have killed their parents and just been okay with it.
Maybe, but too late now. They're at a history lesson. Carden gets angry every time Jude answers a question. They start walking home. Taryn says Jude doesn't usually pick fights with people. But Jude says the more they get away with, the more they believe they're entitled to have. Which is like, I'm gonna stand up for myself. But then a hand comes over Jude's mouth. Lot grabs Taryn. They push them through the woods and then into the water with Taryn. Valerian says there are nixies in the river. Basically like water demons.
Okay.
They'll eat them if they're not careful. Acacia and Valerian start throwing their stuff in the river. Carden watches. Jude gets sucked under the water for a second, but Taryn grabs her back out. Jude finds a rock and says she'll throw it at the nixies if they come for them. Carden tells her to quit. Tell Maddox you don't belong with us. You're betters. Do that and I'll save you. And then he offers Taryn a deal. If she kisses him, he'll let her go. So she does it. I like it, just like on his face. She's not making out with him or anything.
Right.
Carden tells Jude that Taryn abandoned her, tells her to give up. She says never. So Carden and his friends walk off, and then Jude gets out of the water. Vivian wakes her up the next morning, says they're going to the mall with Taryn. Vivian uses magic to make horses out of ragwort, because Vivian is a full-blooded fae. So, no, she's half fae, so like mortal mother. Maddox is her dad.
Right.
She can do magic. The ragwort horses are going to be a common thing. So
The what?
she made horse out of ragwort, which is like a kind of weed.
Okay. She just make plant horses.
Yeah, that's the thing she does.
Okay.
They get to the mall. Vivian says she brought them out there to cheer them up and to meet her girlfriend.
Wait a minute. Is this like modern setting again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they've got
They're at a mall in like
well, it's
the early 2000s-ish.
okay.
And then Vivian says she's going to move in with her girlfriend. So she's no longer going to be in fairies. She wants to go back to the mortal world. Her girlfriend's name is Heather. And she doesn't know that fairies exist.
Okay. Even though
Vivian-
she's dating one.
Yes.
Cool.
Vivian wants all of them to move to the human world. But Jude and Taryn want to stay in Elfheim. Because, they did grow up there. Vivian has a lot more memories of the mortal world because she was, I think, well, no, I guess they would have been 7. Vivian would have been 10 or 11 when they were taken. Either way, They want to stay. They meet Heather. She's a black girl. She's got pink hair. And they tell her their dad is really conservative because Heather is asking about, like, why hasn't she really mentioned her parents and all?
Because he's got that red hat.
Yeah.
He's super conservative.
Yeah, yes. They go back out to the parking lot, and a guy tries to hit on Jude, and Jude grabs him and punches him in the face.
Suck it.
So Taryn and Vivian grab Jude. Jude says this is why she can't go back to the mortal world, because she doesn't even know how to be a normal person. They're at lessons the next day. Jude sees Taryn standing next to Carden, and she's crying, so Jude stomps over and pushes Carden. He says she's going to regret doing that. Taryn won't say why she was crying. She wants to pretend it didn't happen. And she also wants Jude to fix things. There's no winning against him, no matter how brave or clever or even cruel you are, Jude. End this before you really get hurt. Jude also won't withdraw from the tournament. She's determined one way or another, even if she can't formally present herself as a knight, she's going to be part of the tournament. At the tournament, Jude sees Prince Dane and Princess Rhea? No. She wants to be one of Rhea's knights. Jude gets ready for the mock tournament, which is the part that she's allowed to participate in. Sees Carden and his friends. Carden comes up behind her and says she's docile, and starts talking about how badly Taryn wants their approval. I imagine that if I asked, she'd roll with me right here until we turned her white gown green, and then thank me for the honor of my favor. Not that I'd be the first to green gown her. So, do you understand?
Fucking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Green
So,
gown.
well,
I'm gonna green gown you later.
I mean, that's a weird way of putting it, but like, you get pretty clearly what he's implying.
Yeah.
And so he's saying that Taryn is fucking around with somebody else.
Right.
She starts swinging her wooden sword around, hits Carden pretty hard on the chest. She gets Valerian in the shoulder. People start clapping for her. And then this is when Jude realizes Maddox didn't even stay to watch. He's gone.
Oh.
Carden grabs her face and tells her she's born to die. She's determined to oppose him even while she rots away. And tells her to beg for forgiveness. So she, for a second, thinks about it. So she gets on her knees, but then changes her mind.
Punches him in the groin.
No. Since we started being tutored together, you've gone out of your way to make me feel like I'm less than you. And to coddle your ego, I have made myself less. I have made myself small. I have kept my head down. But it wasn't enough to make you leave Taryn and me alone, so I'm not going to do it anymore. She says if he brings her down, she'll make sure he goes down with her. And then she storms off to a fountain. Locke comes and asks if she's okay. And tells her that she really gets under Carden's skin. Jude goes home after the tournament. A servant says the prince is waiting for her in Maddox's study. So she goes bolting in. She thinks it's Carden, and Carden has come to pick another fight with her.
Right.
But then it's Prince Dane. He wants Jude to sit with him, and he's like, who did you think I was? And she's like, nobody. I know humans can lie, but to watch you do it is incredible. Do it again. So again, part of the original folklore of the Fae is that they can't lie. So her being human means that she can, and the Fae constantly forget that she can lie, and like completely underestimate how beneficial it is for her to have the ability to lie.
Yeah. She'd make a great politician if she's the only one in the whole place that can lie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not the only one, because Taryn can do it too.
Well.
So she does lie again. I don't remember what about, but it's just some silly thing. And he asks how Maddox is using her talents, and says he can give her what she dreams. She says she wants to be his knight, and he's like, that can't be it, and asks what else. She says she wants to resist enchantment. Tells her to carry salt and rowan berries, which are the two things that can like counteract glamours and ever apples and all that stuff. But she says those can be taken away. He says he doesn't want her to be a knight. He needs someone who can lie to join the Court of Shadows as a spy. He offers to put a Gaius on her to protect her. So Gaius is just like a magical spell. She accepts. And he says, Jude Duarte, daughter of clay, from this day forward, no fairy glamour will addle your mind. No enchantment will move your body against your will. None save for the maker of the Gaius. So he is very cleverly...
Kind of put a little footnote in there that he can do it.
He can do it. Nobody else can. He still gets the ability, though. She goes to dinner. Vivian isn't there. Maddox says she did well at the tournament, so she asks if he's changed his mind about her being a knight. He says no. Once there's a new High King in place, we will discuss your future. Taryn tells her later that she's skipping their lesson the next day. So Jude still goes to the lesson. It's about astrology. Cardan tells the teacher to pick a more interesting lesson, and the teacher does, because Cardan's the prince, so he gets to boss around everybody. Nicasia comes over, grabs Jude's notebook, slaps Jude in the face. Jude threatens her with a duel. Valerian then gets an ever apple, fairy fruit, and shoves it in her mouth. She starts spitting it out. Valerian puts it in her mouth again, but the drug effect is starting to take over, so she's really giddy, but also realizes she's dying.
That's no good.
Because she's choking on it.
Right.
Cardan pushes Valerian away, says if he kills her, his prank will be over. Jude notices that he looks kind of mad, and she's delirious and happy from the fruit, though, so she's like, ah. The teacher just walks off because the teacher doesn't know what to do.
Great authority figure.
Yeah. Nicasia tells Jude to take off her clothes, so she does. She takes off her dress. And then Nicasia tells her to get on her knees and lick the fruit from her hands. So, they're really taking advantage of her right now. Cardan stops Jude, tells Jude to kiss his feet, and then Locke steps in and tells him to stop and says he'll take her home. Cardan takes a pin from Jude's hair, stabs her finger, and then puts her finger in her mouth. She's got salt in her blood, so the salt in her blood is going to clear out some of the ever apple.
All right.
Cancel out the effects. She tells Locke that she owes him a debt, and he says, I want to see you again. She says, why? He goes, because you're like a story that hasn't happened yet, because I want to see what you'll do. I want to be part of the unfolding of the tale. So Locke is kind of into her.
Wants to stick in her butt.
Yeah, sure. Inside her house, Maddox wants to know who did this to her. Jude won't say and tells him she ate the fruit on her own. He asks her what he can do to help, and she wants him to teach her more. And she goes up to her room. There's an owl on her bed, so that owl that flew out of the window
Yeah.
works
Owl's just bringing apples now?
No, the owl works for Prince Dane.
Ah.
So that's how he got the message that maybe he could use her.
He's got owls under his umbrella of employment?
Yes.
Okay.
It says to go to Hollow Hall and find a secret. So this is her first test as a spy. She has to find a secret for Prince Dane to use. She wakes up when it's dark, dresses like a servant, and then runs into Vivian as she's leaving. Vivian says she knows what happened with the fruit, and Jude says she's going to make all of them regret crossing her. So she's on the warpath now. She rides a giant toad to Hollow Hall.
God damn it.
Because magic and shit.
Is there a saddle? Or
Yeah,
you
it's
just
got a
call it-
saddle.
Okay.
Blonde saddled frog thing.
I wonder how you construct a saddle for a frog.
Maybe.
It's the proper... Because, you got a strap or under its belly, and
I think it's just got to be real fucking big.
it seems like a frog wouldn't be real into putting a saddle on.
Well, this one
Also,
is.
also, how do you train a frog? I know how you train a horse. I don't know how you train a frog.
I don't know, I'm not a fairy.
Questionable.
Okay, you're questionable. So she goes in through the servant entrance at Hollow Hall, ends up in the kitchen, and she sees all these human servants who are very clearly out of it. She follows one of them, hears someone crying in pain, not a great sign, goes into her bedroom, sees Alice in Wonderland and through the looking glass on the table. The books, not the movies.
Okay.
Had to clarify.
Well, you said she sees Alice in Wonderland, and I was like, wait, now we're just going to randomly throw in an Alice in Wonderland character in this?
No. No.
The books.
The books.
Okay.
She takes one of the books and then realizes she's in Cardan's room because Cardan lives at Hollow Hall
Okay.
with his brother.
So she shits in his bed.
No. She leaves to find Belkin's room. There's a letter on the table. Belkin is Cardan's brother, the one he lives with. Finds a letter. It says, I know the provenance of the blusher mushroom that you ask after, but what you do with it must not be tied to me. After this, I consider my debt paid. Let my name be stricken from your lips. So she copies the note. She hears someone coming and hides under a chair. Belkin and Carden walk in the room. Belkin tells Carden to hit him with the sword, so they're like practicing. When Carden swings, Belkin hits him in the head. I have tried to improve you, but you insist on wasting your talents on rebels, on being drunk under the moonlight, on your thoughtless rivalries, and your pathetic romances. So Belkin is kind of a dick.
Well, but his brother's kind of a dick, so.
Yeah, I mean, it gets worse. Carden lunges at him. Belkin knocks him back, tells Carden to take off his shirt, and this is when Jude can see scars on Carden's back. Belkin makes a servant whip Carden and says if Carden needs to prove how tough he is, he should kill the servant. And Carden says he's not a murderer. So, you know, a bully and an asshole, but not a murderer. Good job.
I mean, at this point, you don't really know who to root for. It's
Yeah.
two pieces of shit fighting with one another.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead, whip him a little harder.
Okay, I mean, child abuse is never a great thing.
How old is he?
Carden, at this point, I think is like 17-ish, but he's got scars. This has clearly been happening for a long
Oh,
time.
well. That's what you get for being a little prick.
Okay. Jude goes to the Alphean Palace and meets with Dane, gives him the note she copied, and then a goblin walks in. He says his name is the Roach. He's gonna
Good name for a goblin.
take Jude to meet the troupe, and they'll come up with a nickname for her. So that's not his actual name, but it's like a code name.
Right.
Dane says Belkin is blackmailing Queen Orla, who's Nicasia's mother. He wants to poison Dane before the coronation. Dane compels Jude to keep her role as a spy secret because he's now the only one who can do that. And then he tells her to look into Mithridatism.
That's a made-up word.
It is actually like the term for slowly poisoning yourself to make yourself immune to poisons. It's a real word. It's just a mouthful. The Roach takes her through all these secret passages. They climb inside a cupboard and end up in the lair of the Court of Shadows. She meets the Ghost, who's half mortal, the Bomb, who's that white pixie that she saw steal from the ogre, and the Roach. And he says they're going to teach her some tricks. So meet with him after she goes to bed, and the Ghost offers to take her home. She gets back to her house. Vivian, Taryn, and Locke are outside with Oak. Locke asks why she hasn't told Maddox about the bullying. She's like, well, Maddox would just kill all of you guys. And Locke is like, oh, I didn't think he would do that.
That's fair.
Locke starts moving in to kiss her, but then they hear Taryn, so they jump apart. After dinner, Maddox gives her books on war history. She goes to her room. Taryn comes in asking what Locke wanted. Jude says they'll never respect her if she doesn't fight back. Says every time Carden humiliates her and doesn't back down, he humiliates himself because she's just a weak little mortal, but she can still stand up to him. And this is when Taryn says that she's seeing somebody and that he's going to declare his intentions at Prince Dane's coronation. But she won't tell Jude who it is. Jude pulls out the copy of Alice in Wonderland that she took from Hollow Hall, and then a paper falls out of it. So later, after Taryn is gone, she unfolds that little paper, and it's Carden's handwriting, and it just says Jude about 100 times. Jude, 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 like over and over and over again.
All right. Obsessive much?
A little bit. A seamstress comes to their house to make them dresses for their the coronation thing. Jude gets measured for a dress. She picks a dark blue velvet. That's only important because of what happens later.
Okay.
She has another lesson. She brings an iron knife with her just in case. So fairies, salt is poisonous, iron can also be lethal. And they can't lie.
Okay.
Big three things. Carden leaves her completely alone. So afterwards she goes to practice with Maddox and then goes back to her room. She has all these poisons and the fairy fruit. She's going to try to build up immunity like Dane suggested. But to start off with, just makes her really sick. So she passes out. The ghost wakes her up later.
Just like people who microdose mushrooms.
Yeah, kind of. And he teaches her how to move really quietly because she's a little clumsy because she's human. She goes to lessons. She learns from Maddox. She trains with the Court of Shadows. Lot keeps flirting with her. Nicasia says Cardan won't forgive Locke for what he's doing. So, like, little hints along the way of Cardan. She falls asleep during a lesson because she's doing a fuck ton of shit.
Yeah.
Wakes up when Valerian pushes her out of her chair, and then he tries to compel her to tell Cardan that Cardan won, and then jump out of the window because they're in like a tower.
Okay.
But she's under the gas, so
Yeah.
it doesn't work. And she's like, nah, I think I'll just take the stairs. And then he gets angry and tells her that her only purpose as a mortal is to breed and die.
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
Although, isn't that kind of the purpose of all
Life.
living creatures, is
Life
to
in
breed
general.
and die? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So he's not wrong. It's just kind of a brutal way of putting it.
Yeah. And then he grabs her throat and starts trying to choke her. But she's still got that iron knife, so she stabs him and runs away. She finds Taryn. They run into Cardan, and then Jude threatens him with the knife. Cardan tells Taryn to leave, so Taryn runs to go find Locke. But Cardan sees that, and Jude says they're perfect for each other. And Jude leaves with Locke. Jude tells Locke what happened, and he takes her to his house, says he's having a party later. He's in this big house, but it's all empty. She asks where his family is. He says he has none. His dad just fucking left. His mom got involved.
His dad went to go buy cigarettes and never came back.
Basically. His mom got involved with the high court, got pregnant, and was poisoned with blusher mushroom. He takes her up to the top of a tower. He says that she's not the way they said she'd be, whatever that fucking means. And then he kisses her. He gives her one of his mother's dresses. They have dinner.
That's weird.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I'm kind of into you. You want to wear my mom's clothes?
Yeah. My dead mom's clothes.
Yeah.
He asks her to stay for the party. They go out to the hedge mage. She realizes there's a little gold acorn in the pocket of the dress. Cardan is laying on a blanket, already drunk. Valerian isn't there, probably because he's still licking his wounds after being stabbed.
Right.
There's a girl making out with Cardan, but he keeps looking at Jude. And then
Creep.
she starts making out with Locke in front of everyone. So, I don't know, even the scales there. She wakes up next to Locke in his bed, and he's still asleep. So she takes off his mother's dress, but takes a little gold acorn with her. She runs into Nicasia as she's leaving. Nicasia says Cardan and her were supposed to get married, but Cardan likes to ruin things. She goes to her lessons. Taryn is sitting next to Cardan. Valerian still isn't there. They're teachers from the court of termites, so one of those lower courts. There's a rumor Lord Roybin will be pledging to Prince Dane. Lord Roybin is like the leader of the court of termites, so it's a big deal. And this is when we get history about how the coronation works. That's going to be important. Legend has it that the crown will not allow itself to be placed on the brow of anyone who isn't an heir of Mab. But Mab's line has been very fruitful. So long as a pair of descendants try to take the crown, it could be done. But the most dangerous part of a coup would be this. The crown is cursed so that a murder of its wearer causes the death of the person responsible. So the crown can only be put on the head of someone in the same line. So Cardan could be king if one of his brothers or sisters names him king, but it can't just be anybody. It has to be someone who's related to him.
Right.
Same goes for Dane and Balkan and whatever. After the lesson, Taryn asks where she was the night before, and then Jude tells her. And then Taryn asks if she really likes Locke, and Jude says she does. She goes to her room, opens the little acorn, and a little tiny bird comes out and says, "My dearest friend, these are the last words of Liriope. I have 3 golden birds to scatter. 3 attempts to get one into your hand. I am too far gone for any antidote, and so if you hear this, I leave you with the burden of my secrets and the last wish of my heart. Protect him, take him far from the danger of this court, keep him safe, and never ever tell him the truth of what happened to me." And then she remembers that note that she copied for Prince Dane, and then realizes Queen Orla wasn't planning to poison Dane. She was warning Balkan about what to do with the knowledge of the poison, because Liriope was the person who was poisoned with blusher mushroom. That letter mentioned that, like, Queen Orla knew where the blusher mushroom came from. She decides to go back to Hollow Hall, and she goes to Belkin's study, decides to fake a message, and then she sees a mortal girl, like a servant, who's all drugged out, puts a bunch of salt in her hands and tells her to eat it. The girl says she's not supposed to because she's probably under a lot of like magical. So Jude forces it into her mouth. She and the girl run out of Hollow Hall. Jude grabs her fake message. The girl says her name is Sophie. They walk through the castle, almost run into Carden and Nicasia. Sophie collapses and starts crying. Jude says she can get her back to the mortal world. They have to go to her house first. They get to the stables. Jude tells her to wait for just a minute.
Do they keep the frogs at the stables?
Yes.
Just a stable full of giant frogs.
There are some horses, but also a frog.
Hilarious.
Jude runs inside and finds Vivian and tells her she did something stupid. She stole a human girl from Belkin and needs her help. Vivian makes the ragwort horses again, because that's a thing she does.
Yeah.
They walk for a few minutes. Sophie is putting rocks in her pockets. That'll be important soon. They get on the horses, and then Jude turns to look at Sophie, but Sophie then lets go of the horse and falls into the ocean. Because again, they're like fairies kind of like in the ocean off the coast.
Right.
So she's dead.
Yep, rocks in her pockets.
She did that on purpose, for sure.
Okay.
Jude wakes up the next day. A servant says Prince Dane is waiting for her. She thinks somehow Dane found out about Sophie. Dane says she used her position to endanger his plans. The boy wasn't as badly hurt as he might have been, but with the right knife, a longer knife, the strike would have been lethal. So it's Valerian. He's upset that she stabbed Valerian, even though Valerian wanted her to jump out of a fucking window.
Right.
She tells him that Valerian ordered her to jump, and he's upset that Valerian now knows she can't be controlled, because it was supposed to be a secret. She asks if she was supposed to just let him hurt her, and then he puts down a knife, compels her to pick it up, and then tells her to stab herself in the hand, while avoiding like nerves and arteries and stuff, and then she does. He takes her hand, puts a bandage around it, and then Oriana comes in. Dane leaves in a hurry because he doesn't want to be really associated with Jude, if he can help it.
Right.
Jude goes back to her room, gets in bed, and then Vivian comes in and asks if she's okay. It says, "You did a brave thing. Be glad of that. Not everyone can be brave. I'm not always." They talk about Heather. Vivian says she doesn't want Heather to be afraid of her. That's why she hasn't told her she's a fairy. Like, Heather thinks that she had her ears surgically put into points.
Okay.
Because there are people who do that.
Yeah, there's weirdos who do that, for sure.
Actually, I think the author of the book did that.
Oh, man. So the author of the book's a fucking weirdo. That's weirdo behavior. Like, it's fine. Do whatever you want to do. But also know that the rest of society looks at you and says you're a fucking weirdo.
Well, I mean, if you write books about fairies.
And yeah, chances are. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a fucking weirdo.
Well, I was going to say if you write books about fairies, it makes sense that you like fairies.
I suppose.
Okay. Also, you don't have a real job, so who are you trying to impress?
That too. Get tattoos on your face. Why not?
They hear Tara and yell that their new dresses are there, so they go downstairs. Jude realizes her dress is different than what she picked out. It's not that blue velvet. Oriana asks them to sit with her, tells them to be very careful at the coronation. Don't make bargains with fairies. Don't insult anyone. And she tells Jude not to aspire above her station. Jude realizes Oriana thinks she's fucking Dane. Oriana tells her she used to be a consort, and it's not an easy thing to be the king's lover. I never gave Eldred a child, but another of his lovers nearly did. When she died, rumor pointed to one of the princes poisoning her just to prevent competition for the throne. She makes Jude...
Don't fuck the king.
Do not fuck the king or his children. We'll get there. She makes Jude swear that if she gets pregnant with Dane's child, she'll come to her first.
And we'll throw you down a flight of stairs and get that taken care of. Or wire hanger it right out of you. Or go to a liberal state and we'll have it removed.
Lots of options there. Jude leaves and talks to Taryn. Taryn says Prince Belkin was just there and he was meeting with Maddox. And that's weird because Maddox is supposed to be part of Prince Dane's court. Something's iffy. That night she waits for the ghost. She hears something and she thinks it's him, but then Valerian comes climbing through her window with a knife. He tells her that she doesn't belong there. Says if she screams, the guards will come in. And then she really thinks that Carden told him to do this. And when she tells him, like, Carden's gonna get him killed. Do you know what he said when I told him you stabbed me? He told me it was no more than I deserved. So Carden did not tell him to do this. Carden thinks he's fucking stupid. He's right. He lunges at her. She jumps out of the way, grabs a dagger. He lunges again. She hits the floor, kicks the knife out of his hand, grabs her throat. She thinks, if I can't be better than them, I will become so much worse. And that is a line that gets repeated a lot when people talk about the series. Because it's basically her whole mindset. If she can't be like them, that she's going to be fucking awful. And then she stabs him in the heart. So he falls off of her and starts to talk. I curse you. 3 times I curse you. As you've murdered me, may your hands always be stained with blood. May death be your only companion. He dies before really finishing the curse. And when Jude starts to freak out, because she's just killed someone for the first time. Also, she just got in trouble for stabbing Valerian.
Now he's dead.
Now he's dead in her room.
Whoopsies.
She decides to, like, roll the body under the bed for now. She'll take care of it later.
That'll be fine. Nobody will ever suspect looking under the bed.
Cleans up the blood before the ghost gets there. The ghost shows her how to climb up in beams and rafters. Jude asks if things will get better when Dane is coronated. And he says things are basically going to be the same. So,
Tough shit.
yeah. He says I have to wait there because a messenger is coming from Belkin and they need to kill them. So they see the messenger. Jude shoots with a crossbow. The ghost says he can tell she's poisoning herself. So he asks why. She says she needs to be able to vanquish her enemies. When the room empties, Jude realizes the messenger she shot was one of Maddox's spies. That she had a note that says, kill the bearer of this message. Belkin set the whole thing up. So, like, Belkin must know that Dane has spies of his own working for him. Ghost takes her back to her room. She buries Valerian by the stables, by the frogs.
Right.
So
Should have just fed him to the frogs.
I don't think the frogs eat people or fairy.
I mean, frogs are...
I mean, they eat bugs, but that's
yeah.
a lot different than, like, a fly is a lot different
They're
than a whole ass
omnivorous.
person.
You can give them pieces of people.
Oh, okay.
Imagine how many flies a giant frog would have to eat. They'd have to up their game and eat something bigger.
Okay.
People meat.
Not the people meat again. The next day, they're getting ready for the coronation. Vivian says she wants to meet Taryn's suitor. Taryn is again saying, like, I can't tell you anything. Maddox,
She's fucking the prince, isn't she?
you'll see.
Okay.
It's worse.
Okay.
Maddox comes in holding a sword and says he wants to be alone with Jude. So he gives her the sword. Says it's called Nightfell. Her real dad made it. Her real dad forged weapons in Fairy. That's how he met her mom.
Okay.
And then Jude asks what her parents were like. Maddox doesn't say a whole lot, but he does say that after today, things will be different for them. Ominous. They all get in a carriage. Jude notices that Maddox has brought his red cap that he dips in blood.
Cool.
They get to the palace. Maddox says he'll let them know when it's time to swear to the new king. Jude runs into the brooch, and he tells her good job, says to keep an eye out for Belkin. She dances with Vivian. Locke finds her, and he asks if she can love him, if she can make a promise for him, if she loves him enough to give him up, loves him enough to cry over him, if he hurt her. And she's like, I just hurt you back.
Also, that's a weird way of saying I like you.
Well, Carden cuts in and starts to dance with her, and he asks if she really hates him. She says almost as much as he hates her, and then he bows and leaves. Bells start ringing for the coronation, and then Jude sees Taryn whispering to Locke, and decides not to go stand with her family. So the suitor that Taryn is talking about is Locke. Locke has pit them against each other, and Taryn knew it was happening. Jude didn't. The royal family gets on the dais. King Eldred is on the throne. Carden is nowhere to be seen, probably getting drunk somewhere. That's his thing. The king stands up and says he's going to the Land of Promise, which is basically like, I imagined it like a fairy retirement home.
It's going to an old folks home.
The seneschal, who's basically like the king's assistant, who's human, his name is Val Morin. He comes forward. The king asks to be released, takes off his crown. Val asks who will be king. Eldred says Prince Dane. So Dane stands there naked. It's part of the ritual.
Take your dick out.
Also, fairies, again, they are not human. They don't have the same human morals. They have no. Jude says that sometimes she sees people just having sex in the middle of the floor.
Cool.
They're not human. They don't abide by human rules.
All right.
The other fae around start painting all these weird symbols on him. And then Jude sees Carden in the crowd. He's super drunk. Dane's sisters bring him clothes. Val asks who will crown him. Eldred says, I will. But then Jude notices Maddox's knights are surrounding the dais. Oriana and her sisters are gone. And then Balkan pulls out a sword and says he's challenging Dane for the crown. Eldred says he won't put the crown on Balkan's head. So Balkan then stabs Elowyn, his sister. He gets hit with an arrow from the ghost. And then Maddox stabs Dane. So now 2 people dead so far. I know there's a lot of names, so it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of people, and it's...
Dane was the one who was supposed to become king, so
right.
automatically, that's not going to happen.
Who was also working...
With Jude.
Yeah.
Balkan says Eldred is weak. He threatens his sister and Dane's mother. Eldred says he's unworthy of the crown, so Balkan stabs him. So Old King is dead. He dies in a cloud of red moths.
Okay. That's a decision.
Princess Kalia says she'll crown Balkan, but then she gets shot with an arrow. Unclear who that was from. Princess Rhea picks up a knife, cuts her own throat so that she can't crown him. Because, again, he can only be crowned by someone in their family.
Right.
And then Balkan starts yelling for Carden because Carden is officially the only one left who can crown him. Everyone else is dead.
Yeah. And he's shit-faced.
Yeah, yes. Balkan tells everyone that they're there to sworn to the High King. He puts the crown on, but it burns him because he hasn't actually been crowned. And then he throws it off. Lord Royben from the Court of Termites says they're sworn to the crown, not the king. You have 3 days to get it onto your head, Kinslayer. 3 days before I depart here, unsworn, unchecked in power, and unimpressed. And I am certain not to be the only one. So they're giving him an ultimatum.
Like the whole revolt kind of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jude decides to crawl under the tables and sneak out, but Carden pulls her out. And then he tells her it's not safe for her because she's mortal. She's like, they're looking for you, asshole.
Yeah.
She punches him in the stomach and drags him under the table. They crawl for a while. Jude starts coming up with a plan. Carden just sits there for a minute and is like, my father hated me. And then he says he barely knew any of his siblings. They come out from under the table, and he again tells Jude that, like, Maddox Knights are going to recognize you. So she messes up her hair and she puts on a mask. Her and Carden go for the door. They run into knights who say the palace is barred to common folk. And Carden says Balkan is waiting for a message about the missing prince. They ask for proof, and he shows them a royal ring. He's got fancy jewelry because he's a prince.
Right.
Basically.
I guess, why is she willing to do anything with this guy? Because he's a fucking asshole.
Well, so, again, what Jude really wants to be is respected and powerful in this world. So the way she sees it, at this point, Carden is her ticket to being respected and powerful.
I'd just be like, hey, here's this piece of shit you guys are trying to find. He's drunk as fuck. I don't care, kill him.
Well, she might at some point. It's unclear, like, what she doesn't even really know what she's going to do. She's just, for some reason, like, at this point, protecting Carden.
I don't understand it. Why would you do that?
They climb a bunch
Off with his head.
Okay.
Or she could really fuck shit up and just kill him too. Then there's no king, right?
Yeah, there wouldn't be anyone left that we know of at this point. There wouldn't be anyone left to crown Balkan. But Balkan is also the one who had all those human servants that were, like, drugged and stuff.
Yeah.
He hates mortals.
I mean, he's not a good guy either, but...
So if he becomes king, that's not good for Jude. She's gonna have a real shitty life.
She probably hasn't thought that through yet. I don't know. I just don't understand why you protect somebody who's a piece of shit.
Just wait. They climb a bunch of stairs, turn down a hall, and then Jude shoves a knife under Carden's shin and then tells him to move. And he's like, you're not really gonna hurt me. And then she's like, are you sure? Because I just killed Valerian. They climb into a hidden passage and get to the Court of Shadows. When they get there, she ties Carden to a chair. And this is when she decides officially to use Carden to get some power for herself. She finds Dane's office, drags Carden in, and then points a crossbow at him. Carden asks where they are, And she says it's where Dane's spies meet. She asks if he knew what Balkan was planning, and he says no. Asks if she knew what Maddox was planning, and she says no. So neither one of them knew any of this was going to happen. She pulls off his ring and starts writing a letter. Carden wants some more to drink because he's
an alcoholic.
Yeah, basically. The ghost and the roach come in. The roach is throwing shit around because he's so mad. The ghost says Jude should be celebrating with Maddox. She says if that were the case, she wouldn't have come alone with a prisoner that Maddox wants. And that's when the roach notices Carden. Jude, his tail has come out. Jude can see his tail twitching back and forth. Just...
His twitchy tail.
Well, and this is when you start to get a feeling. He hides his tail because he doesn't, he can pretend not to have emotions, basically. But his tail very clearly gives it away.
Okay.
It's like a dog tail. Like, he was really
He's real excited. It starts moving all that.
Yeah. Or like a cat tail. I like it. Yeah. It's very hard to hide how he's feeling when he's got this twitchy little tail behind him.
Right.
So he's very clearly a little freaked out because it's going like... The ghost says they should kill Carden. Carden says he'll tell them everything he knows about Balkan. It says that Balkan despised Dane because Dane was despicable. Dane poisoned his own child, still in the womb. He worked our father until he trusted no one but Dane. He says Dane poisoned Eldred to make him weak so he'd give up the crown in the first place. It says the person who murdered the child and the mother are in the room. And this is when the ghost very pointedly does not look at Jude. So the ghost is the person who killed Oriana's friend, who was the consort of the king.
Right.
And also apparently Dane. So dad and son. Just
Okay.
Fucking both of them. A little weird.
Cool.
Jude asks why he did that. And then Carden says because he'd fathered a child with Eldred's consort and was afraid Eldred would find out and choose another for his heir. So basically if Eldred find out that Dane knocked up one of his consorts, be like, I can't trust you. You're not going to be the heir.
Right.
She tells the roach and the ghost that Carden is her prisoner. She's their best shot at brokering a deal. And the roach agrees. Jude doesn't understand why Maddox was working with Balkan in the first place, or why Balkan wanted proof that Dane murdered Liriope. She asks when Liriope was poisoned. The ghost says 7 years ago, and says Dane was told if the boy was born, he'd never be king. So there's there's like prophecy and astrology stuff that happens. This is one of them.
Okay.
If the boy was born, he'd never be king. Turns out that happened anyway, because he's dead now.
Yeah.
Jude says she needs to go back home. She'll leave Carden there if they promise not to make any decisions for a day. She gets home, sees way more knights than usual. Vivian runs up to her, goes to her room, and Vivian goes with her. She says Maddox is a monster. They hear Taryn and Oriana talk about Locke. He's the suitor Taryn was planning to marry. Jude confronts Taryn, challenges her to a duel for her honor, and throws a sword at her feet. Taryn says Locke made her promise not to tell anyone because it was a test of love. So Locke said, I'm going to do this thing with your sister and you can't tell anybody because this is how you're going to prove to me that you really love me.
That makes perfect sense. I'm gonna get a little side action from your sister, but you're not allowed to dislike that.
Yeah, so Locke is pretending to be nice, but he's a giant asshole. Jude gets another sword, points it at Taryn. Taryn says she wants to belong here. Says she only liked Taryn. No, she only liked Locke because he was another thing she could take from Carden. Vivian is, again, half fairy, so she compels them to stop. But Jude doesn't stop because it doesn't work. And this is when she officially realizes, she was worried, Dane died. So did that mean it was still in effect?
Yeah.
Officially, yes. And now Dane was the only other person who could compel her, so now officially nobody can. Maddox comes in and tells Jude and Taryn to wait for him in another room. Taryn asks him if he hurt Locke. He says he didn't know that Locke was toying with Jude. Locke said Taryn showed him she could be like the Fae. Maddox told Locke he wasn't worth either of them. Taryn asks if he'll let her marry Locke. And Maddox says, it will not end well, but I will not stand in front of your happiness. I will not even stand in front of misery that you choose for yourself. He was like, this is a bad decision.
Yep.
But go ahead.
Don't marry that guy. He's a piece of shit, but
yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, but I can't make you for making dumb decisions, basically. So Maddox tells Taryn to leave. Jude says she thought he was Dane's friend. He asks her where Carden is. and says that Balkan will give her anything she wants because Balkan needs Cardan in order to become king. He tells her to think about it. So Jude goes back to her room, and when Vivian comes in, she tells Jude she didn't know about Locke. She wants to leave Elfhame that night and wants Jude to come with her. Vivian says she's not sure if Jude knows how to be human anymore. Jude says she'll think about it, asks Vivian to give her like a day to decide for sure. Because again, she's lived in Fairy basically all of her life at this point.
Right.
She might not know how to be human. The next day, Jude finds Oriana, asks where Taryn is. Oriana says she's moving in with Locke officially. They're getting married.
Cool.
And then Jude sees a little gold acorn sitting on a tray. And Jude starts thinking about when Oak was born and how they weren't allowed to see him at first because he was sick when he was born. And she asks Oriana if Oak is Maddox's child. Oriana says, don't say that. And then Jude says Dane is Oak's father. Liriope is his mother. Maddox was working with Balkan temporarily because Maddox wanted eventually Oak to take over the throne because he's of that same family line, so he can. And then he would be like a regent, like the power behind the throne. And she asked Oriana to just be honest about what happened 7 years ago. Oriana says she was friends with Liriope. Liriope told her when she started sleeping with Dane. By the time she got Liriope's acorn, Liriope was dead. So she cut Oak out of her.
Oh.
And Oak just barely survived. And he was actually born with all this blusher mushroom in his veins. So he's kind of immune to it.
Okay.
And then Maddox found out that Dane poisoned Liriope. So Oriana married Maddox for protection. So they only got married so that she would not be a consort anymore. She would be out of Dane's reach. She could then protect Oak. Jude tells Oriana that Maddox wants Oak on the throne. Oriana tells Jude to stop him. Jude says she might know how to help. So she goes back to the Court of Shadows and hears laughing. Cardan is untied, playing cards with everybody. Cardan told them where the king kept all his good wine and the jewels. So they're drunk. They've got all this fancy jewelry with them, having a great time.
Having a party.
She takes him back to Dane's office, makes him sit, and then grabs the crossbow again. Cardan asks if she's going to shoot him. And she says, well, maybe you shouldn't have smirked at me constantly. You think I'm going to stand being mocked here, now? He holds up his hands and says, I'm sorry, I smile when I'm nervous. Says, she's terrifying. He spent all night worrying. He knows what he deserves. And he offers to tell her anything she wants. So he's basically begging for his life at this point.
As he should.
Yeah, as he should.
He's a piece of shit, and she's holding a crossbow at him, so.
Yeah. She says she found a paper with her name all over it. He says that's not a question. She asks when Locke and Taryn started courting. Cardan says it was months ago. He thinks Locke wants both of them in the end.
He's into the sisters.
He's into the sisters. And she says...
Also, sister stuff is gross.
I mean, yeah, it is. This whole thing is bizarre. It's hard to make sense of it, but it's basically like Taryn wants to fit in, and she wants to be with Locke, and Locke told her that she had to convince him she could be like one of the Fae. And the best way to do that would be to just let her fuck with Jude.
Yeah, that's a real weird thing to have written into your story.
Again, they're not human.
Yeah.
But then she says, what about you? Cardan has some really good lines. He goes, Locke hasn't gotten around to seducing me yet, if that's what you're asking. I suppose I should be insulted. She says she means Locke taking Nicasia from him. Cardan says he doesn't know why Locke was also fucking with Nicasia at one point. He doesn't know why. Jude asks why he wants her dead. Cardan says he wanted to scare her, but never wanted her dead. She says Valerian tried to kill her twice, and then shows him the bruises on her throat because he just tried to choke her a couple days ago.
Yeah. Except he's still dead under her bed, right?
No, she buried him by the stable.
That's
remember?
right. That's right.
Yeah.
Fed him to the frogs.
Yeah. I mean, not really.
Not, but yeah.
Cardan says Valerian liked inflicting pain. And then she asks why Cardan hates her so much. And again, he can't lie, and she's pointing a crossbow at him, so he's just like, fine. I hate you because your father loves you, even though you're a human brat, born to his unfaithful wife, while mine never cared for me, though I am a prince of fairy. I hate you because you don't have a brother who beats you. And I hate you because Locke used you and your sister to make Nicasia cry after he stole her from me. So, not a whole lot of great reasons. He's basically jealous is what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Jude says he has to have a better reason than that. threatens him with a crossbow again. And he goes, fine. Most of all, I hate you because I think of you often. It's disgusting and I can't stop. So not only is he jealous, he's also kind of into her.
Cool.
She puts down the crossbow and grabs a knife, holds it under his chin again, and then makes out with him. And then realizes that she's into it as well. And so she gets mad and she throws the knife.
Ridiculous. I hate you so much. Let me put my tongue in your mouth.
Well, there's a fine line between love and hate.
I've never understood that.
Well,
I've hated a lot of people. I've never wanted to do anything sexual with them.
okay. Carden offers her a deal and says that she should tell Balkan that he'll leave Elfhame and never come back. Jude opens the door and tells the others she's going to take a walk and then explain her plan. Says they should write down exactly what they want. So they're going to make like a big collective deal in exchange for Carden's life, basically. Jude goes to sit by a lake and thinks through her options. She thinks about crowning Oak and raising him in the mortal world away from Madoc, because she's really worried about the influence Madoc will have on Oak. Because Madoc is a redcap. He likes violence. He likes war and all these other things.
Yeah.
She goes back to the Court of Shadows. The bomb is there. Everyone else is asleep, and the bomb says she's going to help Jude. And Jude asks her how she feels about stealing a crown. So she's already formulated some kind of plan to steal the crown for Balkan. Jude wakes up Carden and says she needs to talk to him. They go back to the office. She asks how he would feel if there was someone besides Balkan who could be king. And Carden was like, yeah, it's me, and I don't fucking want it.
I don't want it.
Yeah, he goes full Jon Snow. Jude tells him it's Oak. Oak is the other heir. Oak is Dane's son. So she needs him to crown Oak because, again, he can only be crowned by someone in the family.
Right.
Says she wants Carden to swear himself into her service. Because Carden is a fairy, if he makes a vow, if he promises to do something, he is magically bound to it.
Okay. More fairy rules.
More fairy rules. He says he wants Hollow Hall, all the wine in the cellars, because he's drunk. And he wants the roach to teach him how to steal. And Judah's like, okay.
So he could steal more booze, probably.
Yeah. Well, and the roach is like a pretty good pickpocket, so he's probably like, that'd be fun. Carden says she can have his service for a year and a day. When he gets on his knees and he swears it, so officially, magically bound. Jude and Carden go look for other fairies to talk to, try to get some support. She commands him to wait while she looks for others. She asks about Queen Annette, who's one of the queens of the lower courts. Carden says she values power, would not like what Balkan did to his family. She goes to Queen Annette's tent, but there are trolls outside who won't let her in, so she goes back to Carden. He's laying in the grass. She says she didn't even get to talk to the queen, and he's like, well, you did it wrong. So he says she should talk to Lord Royben next, and the Elder King's son. Still unclear about who the Elder King is. She goes to him first, though. Tells him she has a message from the king. She wants him to witness the coronation, but not for Balkan. She then goes to Royben's tent, gets caught by a knight. Royben asks what court she's part of, and she says the true High King Eldred says she can put someone other than Balkan on the throne, but she needs him to witness the coronation tomorrow. He says he'll do it, but only if he gets to ask the king for a favor. Jude says it has to be something of equal value and within her power, so it can't just be fucking anything.
Right.
Her and Carden go back to the Court of Shadows. The ghost asks if she brought him gold. She said he's going to give him revenge because Dane forced him to kill Liriope, and then like he was working for Dane for a while, and now Dane is dead. It's a whole thing. She tells him that Liriope's child is alive, and then explains her plan to all of them. The roach says her and Carden need to be dressed appropriately for the banquet because they're fancy royal stuff, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Dress up.
So she goes back to her house and packs a bag, knocks on Vivian's door, and tells her that she was a spy for Dane, and that Madoc is planning something with Oak. Tells her that Oak can be crowned, but then she wants Vivian to take Oak with her to the mortal world. So her plan as of right now is that they're going to crown Oak instead of Balkan, and then whisk Oak away to the mortal world, away from Madoc, so that he can grow up relatively normal and then come back when he's older. Because he's like 6 or 7 years old.
So he's just a king that's gonna not be around.
Yes.
Right.
Jude and Carden go back to Hollow Hall, This is where they're having this big party. Everyone looks at them as they come in. And then Balkan comes up to them. He tells Cardan he was looking for him. And then he tells Jude to leave because he thinks Jude is just an insignificant mortal person. And then Madoc comes up to them. Madoc asks Balkan if he's going to reward Jude for bringing him Cardan. She pours 2 glasses of wine. She gives one to Madoc. And then Cardan says he'll give Balkan his terms after dinner. They run into Nicasia. He tells her to stay away for her safety. Jude leaves and goes to Oriana and Oak. Tells Oriana that they will all make sacrifices. And then she goes to Madoc. They go out into the hall. Madoc says she should have brought Cardan to him. He says he'll have the crown one way or another. So she offers a bargain. Swear to me that you'll never raise a hand against Oak, and I'll help. Promise me that when he comes of age, you will immediately step down as regent. He won't do that, because that's literally his whole plan. So they draw swords and start fighting. He breaks her nose and tells her to surrender. Well, then he starts shaking. Jude says she poisoned both cups of wine to make sure he got the poison, because she's been slowly building up her own immunity.
Right.
So, she feels it, but not nearly as much as he does. And then she goes back inside after Madoc passes out. She tells Balkan that Madoc is chasing some of Dane's spies, and then Locke comes up to her. And he says, I didn't think you'd duel over me. And she's like, well, you just go away.
Done with you.
Yeah. She goes back to Cardan. Cardan says, have I told you how hideous you look tonight? And she says, no, tell me. He says, I cannot. He can't lie. Balkan stands up, and then a bomb goes off. The ghost runs for the crown. Vivian has Oak, but Taryn picks up the crown. Jude tells her to give it to Vivian. Jude goes out to her and then eventually gets the crown. Balkan starts threatening everyone and tells Cardan he won't enjoy being king. Tells him to bring the crown to him. Cardan says, no, brother. I do not think that I will. I think that if I did not have another reason to cross you, I would do it for spite. Jude tells Cardan to show Oak what to do. Makes him kneel. Commands him not to move for a full minute. And then Oak puts the crown on Cardan's head and verbally crowns him. So Cardan is now king. And Cardan is pissed, because this was not the deal they had. Jude realized the only way to keep Oak safe until he's old enough to be king was to have someone else be king in the meantime. Which means her only option was Cardan. Once all the mess gets cleaned up, Cardan starts doing toasts. He looks at Jude. He says to Jude, who gave me a gift tonight, one that I plan to repay in kind. So that's a dig, because he's not happy.
Yeah.
And then the bomb tells Jude that they came up with a nickname for her. They're going to call her the Queen. And that's the end of the book.
Okay. So shit kind of hits the fan there at the end.
Yes.
All right.
Like I said, there's a lot of politics, a lot of back and forth, a lot of planning and scheming and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of it seemed to really work out.
Well, I mean, Jude got what she wanted. She's got, the King of Fairy is now compelled to listen to her for the next year.
Yeah.
Oak is going to be safe because he's going to go live with Vivian. And, she'll have some power in her own right. So, it may not have been the way she originally wanted to go about it, but she did get something.
Okay.
You have not looked excited the entire time.
Yeah, it's... First of all, this has gone on way too long. There's too many names that don't make sense. I got lost a handful of times, but couldn't remember who people were.
Okay.
Not my favorite.
All right.
I'm glad you liked it. I'm going to assume since you said right out of the gate this is one of your favorites, you probably gave it a 5.
No, this one I gave a 4.
Okay. So does it get better?
Yeah, I mean, this first one, so I have seen a lot of comments about how, people don't like this first book, especially because it's, really immature. Cardan is a bully. They do, immature stuff. But, the next book on, he is the king. There's a lot more, actual politicking that happens.
Yeah. I guess I kind of got lost, why she would help him at all, ever.
Well, it's not that she's helping, because you can make the argument she's not helping him. She made him king when he really didn't want to fucking be king.
Yeah, but again, why she wouldn't have just been why she wouldn't have just walked away and been fuck all of this. Because I very much have that mentality of
I know.
Fuck this. And she's trying to make something out of it and helping him. And I don't know, to me, it would just, that whole section of the story doesn't make any sense at all.
Okay.
I can't understand and relate to that.
She wanted to use Cardan to get some power for herself, because Cardan was like a bargaining chip at that point. Everybody wanted to figure out where the fuck he was.
Yeah, and then she making out with him, and
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay.
Those two, the relationship there doesn't make any sense. And so it kind of, to me, the whole story falls apart because your two main characters have this fabricated story that doesn't make any sense why it would exist. That's stupid.
But I mean, Cardin is a complicated character to say the least, and he's also kind of been intrigued by mortals, and then so there's this murder girl that he's grown up with, and like he's been especially mean to her because he was living with Balkan, who hated mortals, and so he felt really shitty for liking a mortal in the first place, and it's this whole complicated thing.
Not a fan.
Okay, next we're gonna do the Wicked King.
Great.
Follow us on Facebook and TikTok, FAE Podcast.
I can't wait to hear more of this crap.
Yeah, be nice.
No.
Okay, we will see you next time.
Bye.